what motivates relating? What motivates that ability to relate to another person? That is sort of this desire to see and to be seen. I use the word see because when we're seeking to relate, we're really going back down to basics of our five senses. What am I seeing? What am I perceiving with my eyes? Intuitively, we might feel something. We might feel something different than what our eyes are seeing. But because our intuitive body is picking up something, that doesn't necessarily mean it's true for the other person. In this relatability, we're focusing on what we're physically observing. So there is an inner knowing that needs to be paid attention to. An acknowledgement of what is in the feeling. And our society often will talk about these boundaries, and I think those are important. But I think those boundaries can also be readdressed with how we intuitively feel in the moment. Sometimes intuitively you'll be like, this is a bad situation, I'm out of here. I'm getting completely latched onto and drained. And I've had that before. It's definitely a different feeling. So you have to be emotionally in tune with yourself.
Ever wonder if there's intelligent life elsewhere in the universe? Well, I have. I've been wondering since I was a kid. My name is Reuben Langdon, and on March 29th, 2007, in the middle of the day, I saw a number of strange objects in the sky. Coincidentally, I was working on the film Avatar at the time, playing an alien. And ever since then, I've been on a quest. A quest to find out if aliens really do exist, and if so, are they here with us? If beings of higher intelligence are here, what is their purpose? Why don't they make themselves more known? Why the secrecy? I've asked these questions to many experts, yet each seems to have a different theory. So I thought to myself, why not ask the aliens directly? So that's what I set out to do. Well, sort of.
All right, Deéte, thank you for having me here. I wanted to find out a little bit about yourself and your process and your journey and
all that jazz.
Where can we start, or where would you like to start?
All right, so I grew up Mormon since day one, born in Salt Lake City. We did move to Phoenix, so I didn't grow up in Salt Lake City. Mm-hmm. But you know, growing up with that religious mindset, that was a big program that I had to break free from. And I think part of the reason that my journey started was two things that was the catalyst, which was my grandma passing away. And prior to that, I was sort of feeling like I had had enough of this life and was ready to kill myself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I didn't know how to break out of the religion and the mindsets, and I felt like the only escape would have been to kill myself. And then shortly after, my grandma passed, and I started getting like visitations from her. And in the Mormon community, and I think as well as other religious communities, if you have a visitation from a grandma, it's not so weird. My grandma passed, and I felt like she was around me. It wasn't like an odd thing.
Okay.
And so that really helped me learn to communicate with her. And then I started having other beings come to me And then it was ET beings. And that's when things, I think, got kind of weird for people. Like,
Right.
oh, we're having other dimensional communication.
So at the time, were you still sort of hardcore Mormon?
I was transitioning out by that point,
okay.
yeah.
And members of your community sort of accepted the grandmother visitations?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But then going beyond that, is that when things got weird?
That's when I wasn't sure how much I should give out to people, like when their past grandmothers were coming to me, or even if their mother had passed and they were giving me messages. I felt like it was too much for me to say, hey, I can hear your grandma as well. This is what she's saying. But if I get the message from my own grandma, it wasn't so weird.
I see.
So
people, because I guess it may feel a little intrusive then if they were
Yeah.
getting those messages.
And maybe they feel like, well, that's my grandma. She should be communicating with me only.
Oh, I see.
And then that's the funny thing that I learned with being a channeler and a medium is like when you open yourself up to any spirit can communicate with you and give messages of healing if they feel like you're going to listen. And other people close themselves off to it sometimes.
Well, don't you have to get permission or you get permission from their family members from the other side? How does that work?
The other side really doesn't care too much.
They're
They're just like
hey, someone here
they really
can
don't
understand me.
care.
Let me communicate to you, for example, to convey that message.
Yeah.
And I guess when other people, what I was going to ask is when they, when some of the information coming through is spot on or accurate, does that sort of freak them out a little bit, or?
Yeah, that's when they come up with the logical excuses. Well, you probably know that because of this,
Sure.
or things like that.
Yeah.
And I think it does make them a little like, how would she know that? That's nerve-wracking. So my logical mind will step in and try to make sense of it.
Right. Yeah, I've thrown that out a long time ago. Yeah, that was part of the series, was getting to see, proving for myself whether all this other side stuff is real or not, or if it's just, are all these people just, going on the internet and finding things out about me and then conveying it. And then I'm like, no, it's not.
You're like,
what
I don't
happened.
know. Yeah, and I think that's why Spirit just doesn't care, is because they connect to the heart and they know that even if the logical mind steps in, that heart space can eventually come through and be like, you know what, I feel like this is real.
So you started channeling ETs or taught communication, I guess. How did, what was your first communication from the ET realm or that?
So I would kind of set like a daily practice of meditation aside, and that's when I started kind of channeling other beings and things like that, or I guess spirit beings that I knew as people.
Okay.
And then that's when I started getting visuals of other beings. I had a reptilian that came that I didn't even know anything about reptilians or anything at that point, and it kind of was like, that was weird in my imagination, like create a giant like lizard guy. I don't know, it was just a weird like. And then I just saw things that I didn't think that I could create in my mind, like the Lyran beings, cats and like things. And I decided to look it up on the internet, and there were other people that had had similar experiences or had visions of the same type of being. So I'm like, maybe this is a real contact. And that's when I opened myself up more and I got more of it.
So the first being was a reptilian. Was he, what did he say?
Well, it was interesting because he had like this cape on and it looked like he could have put it like a hood kind of thing. And so I was meditating and he came through and I was kind of like, whoa. And then he faded away and then a gray came in. So I don't know if he shape-shifted to make it more something that I felt.
Like I'm an alien kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm just an alien, yeah. But he's told me that he's my guide and protector, and so he's kind of always been there. And so, but initially it was kind of a weird thing for me. And then does he have a name?
Yeah.
As far as I can hear, he calls himself, he says Balthasar. That's how he says it.
Balthasar,
Yeah.
Is he, do you know what realm of reptilians? There's so many.
Well, he says he's with the Alpha Draconis, but he often works with like the council of beings, which can be like Pleiade or from all over basically, to help humanity.
Okay. So for those who are watching, there are alpha draconians that are actually helping, as opposed to being, all, because a common misconception, I guess, would be that all the reptilians are bad. That a lot of people who, subscribe to this information are like, ooh, reptilians, stay back.
Yeah, and then with that, Alpha Draconis is mainly just a star system. So it's like Pleiades star system. And you're going to have benevolent beings, and you're going to have those that are in favor of humanity's evolution. And that's the same with the Draconis. They have a lot of evolved beings that are in service of humanity now, even though maybe at one point they hadn't been.
Right.
And there are still those breakoffs in that star system that are heavily domineering. And then there's also the species that stay within Earth that are like lower realms of reptilian that I would say are more of the dangerous because they're not evolved and they wish to stay in fourth density.
So all this information that you just described, this is all just coming through these different interactions with these different beings?
Yeah, just through channelings that I've done for individuals and I guess more public.
Yeah. Well, when I first discovered your work, I was blown away on how correlating it was with all the other stuff I've been doing, interviewing others, and you haven't been doing this that long, right? It's only been this past year
maybe
or two.
Maybe a year and a half.
A year and
maybe,
a half.
yeah.
Wow. And I was blown away by the in-depthness of some of the channelings and the information coming through that, again, just correlates with everything I've been studying for the past 10 years.
Good. So, I'm glad I'm not like way off.
No, you're right on track, which is why I'm here. When we're doing this. So after the reptilian encounter, shape-shifting into a gray, what other sort of beings sort of came through? And
there was a gray and a mantis that came through after I sort of was resisting a while on like my path and things, and I don't know if the gray was the reptilian in disguise. I don't know. There was a lot of language that sounded like ancient Egyptian and spoke of like choosing me to be the channeler for information and things like that. And so that's when I basically started taking things more seriously. And there was another very vivid contact where I was actually on the couch here. I had fallen asleep one night and a Draconis being came and he looked like a giant bat. Like it was so intense.
Wow.
He had the wings, it was dark, and it felt like a lower dimensional being standing to the side of me. I couldn't get a glimpse of what it looked like, but it was cursing me out. And the Draconis was like, basically surrender to your path, surrender to let go of the old ideas, because at the time I was having a hard time transitioning. And, but he did it in such a, I don't want to say dark way, because it benefited me to understand that I need to get serious, but it was dark energy. It was just a very intense, I mean, he was basically like, the way he stood, his presence, everything was just very interesting.
This was the bat being, the bat.
Yeah.
But you said there was another lower being at the same time that was yelling at you. And he was sort of yelling at you as well, or? No,
the bat being, I actually woke up and was like, why is there a Batman in my room? Because it felt so, or not in my room, but next to me, because it felt so much like a Batman.
Right.
But then the lower dimensional being was the one that's like cursing me out. The other one.
So the other one was just there.
He was just there, and he basically communicated in a very dignified way, but it was a very powerful way. Like to the point where you'd want to listen, but everything just felt very like intense.
Do you know, have you made sense of that since? Why the two beings? Two different beings at the same time, one's doing the, Basically, from what I understand, I don't know if this is like 100%, but because my vibration had to rise so much to communicate to this other Draconis being, because I could almost see him, like it was like there was no third dimension where I was at. I had to kind of slip through the fourth dimension, and so I was able to interact with fourth dimensional beings that were trying to, I guess, take me down or communicate negative emotions to me, things like that. So when you open yourself up as a channel, then it could be negative, positive. Like everybody's trying to get to you.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
To communicate through, or to what do you think their purposes are?
I don't think they like when there's light being brought into the soul. I feel like there's a lot of emotions that they can gain when things stay in low dimensions, low density. And during the time when I was starting channeling, I didn't know how to block myself or how to like set the tone, I guess, my intention. And I got a lot of low dimensions coming in. And I just don't think they like it. I don't think they like you shedding light and love to people and letting them know their power.
And I guess if you are going to, and they can see you as it being a conduit, then, well, maybe they can use that energy.
Yeah.
Or use you as the conduit for their energy instead.
Yeah.
So having both channelings of, as I try to sort of guide more to the positive and empowering messages, but I guess in the same sense you can have people channeling bad stuff, negative energy and disempowering information.
Well, and it's kind of like where our world is at today. There's a lot of powerful people that know ancient knowledge. They know about those things, and instead of using it for good, they've used it for evil. So it's like, if I can tap into that, can they get me to use that for evil purposes or whatever the case is, like they've always been able to do, or can we transmute that and use it for collective of humanity's evolution?
Right. When did you sort of go public with all of this? When did you decide to share this gift?
Share the gift. So I woke up one morning and I had this burning sensation, yearning or whatever, to channel Princess Diana publicly and post on YouTube. And it was just something that I just knew I had to do.
Was she already coming through?
She had been coming through, not quite like I did on the video, though. That was pretty long and intense. So
I don't think I saw that one. Can you just give us a little sneak?
It was very emotional. It was the first time I ever really did like a long period of channeling. And she basically got into some deep issues, and that's basically how I started on the YouTube and decided whoever comes, I will channel you and make it public, and that's kind of how it went.
And what was the reaction when you put that up? How did people respond?
Actually, fairly well. Okay. People really enjoyed it.
And then that sort of propelled you to keep doing this? Yeah,
and then I started getting more and more people's deceased loved ones coming to me, and that's when I decided to do private channelings on my own, and so it just kind of took off from there.
Okay. What, being in Salt Lake and in this energy, what's, because you mentioned earlier people were okay with the grandmother stuff, but beyond your personal grandmother, when you started going to other grandmothers or other spirits, have you gotten much of a blowback from the community?
So I'm not very verbal with all of that now. I just feel like if people are ready, Spirit will help them find me through the internet or whatever that way. I've just had too many just put up walls and they just don't know how to deal with it. I do find that women that have their children out of the house and they're trying to rediscover themselves, they are starting to dabble with this, even if they are in the Mormon church. So a lot of my clients that I have had from Salt Lake are older women. And
when you say children out of the house, like grown up and out?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? Okay.
Yeah, and they kind of are just like, I've gone to church for years, had the same lessons over and over. What else is there? Their kids are out of the house, so they'll start to explore these things and they're more open to it. And it's the ones that are having their little kids, their kids that they're trying to get into church zone, and they're still a little bit unsure what to bring into their family life and even themselves.
Right. And probably being conditioned since birth, right? So they're probably still a little scared to go outside of what they know.
Yeah.
So, well, hopefully that'll be changing.
Yes, I'm really hoping.
Yeah. I've done a little research on the Mormon religion, but for those who aren't too familiar, I'm guessing it's a pretty rigid set of rules and its belief system.
I mean, it's not just a religion. It's like you change your whole life and culture, almost like Islamic. Like you change everything about how you live, your interactions with people.
In what ways could you go into?
Well, you don't drink. There are a lot of regulations with, I guess, just how you live your life.
Well, not drinking, that could be a positive thing.
It is a positive thing, yeah, because it's fun. Like, it's really fun to drink every once in a while, but it can bring your vibration to a low state, and then you can't think very clearly. So there's something to that.
Yeah. I was recently in Kuwait, and it's illegal. Alcohol is illegal there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they don't have it at all. So I thought, oh, well, that's actually
that might be
that's
kind of
good. No, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But
the thing is though, I think with kids being told, like, we don't do that, it's a rule, then they get more intrigued, and then they take it to a whole other level.
Yeah.
So
overcompensation because of the suppression.
I think one thing when you said suppression, I think the sexual side of how we are in our culture is also another, like, lifestyle that is unhealthy, and just the way that we kind of, like, live.
And is that, because I know the multiple wives thing, that's sort of, how does that work?
So that is a break off from the Mormon church.
Oh, okay.
So we were, and I say we because I've been a part of it for so long, but I don't go to the church anymore. But the Mormon church was polygamist. Government was getting at them, and so they said, okay, we're not. But another side said, well, we still want to be. So they broke off, and they still do. And they call the FLDS, or like a fundamentalist.
Okay, so there's different divisions within the Mormon.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know that. Okay.
Yeah.
And so overall, basically, the polygamy is not so much. No,
not in the main Mormon church.
Okay,
no.
It's just because I've seen some variety or some TV shows of where they go into the lives
sister
of,
wives and
and just caught glimpses, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So.
Well, they believe pretty much a lot of the same stuff. It's just the polygamy that's been altered, that we have taken out because we were getting so much from the government.
I see. So getting back to the ET stuff, you mentioned channeling a Zeta, and was it channeling or connecting with a Zeta and a Mantis?
Well, I guess it would be more of like a contact experience. They came to me and just talked to me, and my vibration had to be raised so much that I didn't feel like I could even move. I was basically not thrown down by them, but my energy felt so transitioned that I laid down on the couch, and then they came over me. And it just took a while for me to even gain my energy back. Because I've been exploring my own personal connections with both Zeta and Mantis. Could I ask what it felt like? I felt like I was in a dizzy tunnel. Were they coming at the same time? They came at the same time together. They came together and kind of came toward me and spoke to me. I felt like the Mantis was doing something with my energy to raise it enough where I would understand, almost like they were speaking directly to me, like we are. But obviously there were no words. The gray was. Yeah, the gray was speaking, and I could understand it almost like you and I were talking. So the Mantis was more of a facilitator. Yeah, just sort of being there. It felt like it was doing something with my energy to raise it to a certain degree where I could understand that. And what did they say? Okay, so it said, basically, you need to do your path. You've been chosen for this, and then they said all this stuff in like Egyptian. That I didn't. I think they thought that it would click or something, but I just didn't. Well, what did it feel like? It felt like ancient information that you need to reintroduce back into the human consciousness. Do you have an idea of what that is? Yeah, so since then I've done meditations and clarified it, and it always goes back to the Egyptian times. And what are those messages? So there's a lot. Just the short version. I think the biggest thing for that time period was there were beings on the planet and already interacting with you. And when I go back into my meditations and they show me that there are extraterrestrials all over the place that are in control of different paradigms of the social structures. And somewhere along the lines, most particularly probably the Roman times when the Romans took over, they transitioned it to be more of a three-dimensional world, and they sort of faded in the background with control still, but we are not able to see them. And because of that, we have become unconscious. And so that's where all the transitions have happened. And so they just basically want to reintroduce the idea that they've always been here, but the fact that they kind of say that like the cycles of the planet have taken us into like a lower dimension, and other beings took advantage of that. And so we stayed in 3D for a while.
Right. Are you familiar with the density terms, density levels correlating with chakras?
Yeah, so isn't it this, the lower is like your third, and then it goes up higher to the higher dimensions?
Or density dimensions, this is sort of creating a thesaurus of words to describe these experiences. And I like to use the dimensional, when I use the term dimensions, I correlate it with actual like scientific, how the scientific community says we're actually in the fourth dimension with like X, Y, Z, or up, down, left, right, and space-time being the fourth dimension for measuring dimensional space and time. And then fifth dimensional sort of concepts and ideas would be getting out of the linear concept, you know, so from A to B, no longer going in that linear sense, but jumping around the space-time, and that gives a fifth dimensional perspective on a reality. Where I've noticed with some of the other interviews, and Lisa Royale and others used the term densities to describe the actual consciousness. And we're sort of, they say we're moving from third to fourth density. And I notice these terms kind of get confusing sometimes as people say 3D, 4D. So would you say more the third density, like this, the heaviness of the energy, and then we're moving into fourth density?
Yeah, so what I understand with that is we were like a fourth density or a fifth dimensional type being before, and then I guess it was the way that the cycles of the earth rotated, or however it worked. Beings knew this and came down and used these paradigms to take and control our fear and structure, and we went down into density, and some of us have stayed here for a while, and now that the earth has done its cycle rotation, we're able to come out of it.
Right. Yeah, that matches.
Does that seem like a
matches right with everything? Yeah. So totally. Yeah. And so the planet itself is its own higher dimensional density being, and we as densities beings, you know, on it have to evolve with her.
Yeah, that's a perfect way, because people get upset, like, why, how could the beings come and do that to our consciousness? But it's like, we're all doing this together. And in a sense, you know, in almost every single one of my channelings, it was basically humanity's choice. We let the fear overcome us. We let that maintain our consciousness, and we just didn't break out of it in time, I guess, for everything to evolve, and we stayed with it for a while.
Yeah, I was hoping later today we can get into, in the channeling, we can get into some of the history a little bit more, fall of Atlantis and these cycles and stuff like that. So, and the human evolution, I think that was going to be sort of some of the main focus. Sounds like you've got a lot of information.
I think that's the biggest scope of my path as a channeler, because it can, you know, as each channeler kind of has their things that they focus on, and I feel like right now that's what they want me to focus on, because it's just what was needed, I guess, for this evolution process.
Yeah, and you know, we can always learn from our past, even though we're recreating it in the moment now.
I know.
So, awesome. So you've connected with all these different beings. Do you have like a one being that you normally connect with, or is it just always random?
A lot of times it is like the Council of Light, if it's to do with healing. If there's something to do with healing, it just depending on the question and things like that. If it's something
And
with
they call
origins.
themselves, is a collective, the Council of Light?
Yeah, but they'll visually show me who's stepping forward usually.
Okay. So within the council,
Yeah.
one person of the council will step forward and say, okay,
Yeah.
on behalf of the council.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Especially like if that individual, if they know that individual and that individual has a specific question about healing with whatever reason, they know how to answer that question, maybe more than somebody else or whatever.
Interesting.
But I do feel like as far as like the origins in humanity, it is more of like ET and the Draconis that I connect with, reptilian type stuff.
Okay. When you say the ET, so the Draconis part of the ET.
Yeah,
stuff.
but also like just other ET beings that maybe are not fully part of the council with healing. They just know about humanity and how things have fit in, such as like Lyran beings or things like that. They have a lot of wisdom that came with this time period, and so they'll help with that kind of thing if you're gaining knowledge.
Very cool. Do you have a favorite?
Well, I like doing the reptilians and Draconians. Yeah, their energy is just so direct, and I like that. I don't like the fluff of everything.
Right.
Like, let's just get to the reason why we're here and let's
Right.
do it. And that's how they are.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Do you think maybe later we can talk to us? Let's see.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. I've my process over doing this series has been learning and sort of categorizing and learning about these different energies, and the reptilians, we had one super happy-go-lucky Treb come through, Rob Gauthier, reptilian. But other than that, I really haven't tapped into too many other. Personally, I've sort of seeked out and seen and connected with, but I think that would be nice to.
So have you
introduce.
seen any, like in your meditations or?
Reptilians? No, actually. Well, I kind of, but not in a communicative sense where they were creating a rapport of question answers kind of thing, just images and feelings.
You just kind of flew by your line of vision.
Yeah, sort of reptilians, and I sort of got one time during a meditation, I sort of saw this really nasty, dark claws and teeth and snouts and all that stuff coming in, and then for a split second, I was sort of really afraid. But then I immediately was like, well, no, that's super cool. Look at how cool that is, looking at it from the little boy's perspective, like a Jurassic Park or something like, what kids love dinosaurs and playing with that stuff. And it's a cool factor. And as soon as I did that, it shifted and it turned into a cartoon.
Oh, really?
And
That's interesting.
And it was kind of like Shrek, you know how he tries to be the mean giant in front of everybody, but he's just a cuddly Shrek guy.
That's funny.
And that was the analogy. It was like, it's just about your perspective and how you look at these things, which creates them, right? So it was, in reality, it was just a lovable, cartoon, puffy dragon thing.
That is cool. I've heard that where you can transmute what you're seeing into something more lovable or in the light kind of thing.
Yeah, so that was, and I think that was the lesson, that it was sort of coming through and saying, hey, we're not all scary, nasty, we can be cool. It's just, you guys are so used to perception, right?
Yeah.
You're so trained, oh, this is bad, this is good. So if you let go of all that, there's actually something really cool to be seen and even lovable and happy and, and good with the reptilian stuff. But conditioning, even in the New Age communities, the conditioning of reptilians has not been the greatest. They've sort of had, stay away from the reptilians, or the evil reptilian government, the Illuminati, and all. And that, of course, that faction and those, they do exist. But for us to, I think it's time for us to embrace all of that side of us, because we all have reptilian in us.
Yeah. Well, as far as I know, there are like the ancient reptilians. And then, like I said, there's like more the lower dimensional that just want to be in fourth density,
Yeah.
and they don't want to evolve right now. And
Sure.
those are the ones that are kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
But the other ones, they're very wise, and they have a lot of intelligence.
That dragon's been around a long time.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and there's a reason. It's funny, I actually had, and I was in an ayahuasca journey, and this was right, literally days after the election of Trump, and I saw Trump as this wise dragon
Wow.
flying around the room. And it was something, because there's so much fear around that, and there was other people in the ceremony that thought we were all going to be put in concentration camps and taken away, which I saw the energy of what Trump is here. I'm not, whoever's watching this, I'm not like a big Trump supporter. I'm not saying that's,
It's just maybe what you needed to see.
It's just what I needed to see to say, hey, let's not be afraid of this.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of the energy. Instead, maybe there is some wisdom behind it. Not saying that he's conscious of any kind of wisdom, but there should be, whatever energy is coming through there for the planet and for the lessons that we need to learn at this time. It could be this ancient reptilian wise energy
Yeah, I
to
like
help
that.
move us through our evolution. So it's all here to serve. Otherwise, it wouldn't be happening.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, actually, I wanted to ask you. So your process, I've noticed online from the videos I've seen, it's sort of a little bit different than your traditional channeler. It's almost like you're translating in real time, as opposed. And sometimes I've seen you go full like talking as the being. But
Yeah.
I think most people are familiar with this show, are used to people sort of embracing the energy of that being, and I'm sort of like having a conversation with that being. How does it work for you?
So initially, I did let myself completely go into more of a deeper trance, and I took on the energy of the being. I've kind of trained myself to hold back a little bit, to be a little bit more present and use my own personality in communicating.
Okay.
Just because I feel like there are some information in not advanced, but there's a lot of information that people are just still trying to get a grip on, that I feel like I need to explain it in my own terms versus using the personality of the being.
Right.
But it just depends on kind of what is needed.
Okay.
And the deep trance, I definitely initially got into like the deeper trance.
And so when you go into the deeper trance, are you still able to hear the information, or still?
Yeah,
sort of
I'm just not
semi-present?
able to communicate with you as clearly. Like I'm just totally
Right.
replaced.
But the information that's coming through is clear information.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that would be good for like right now, you and I, or even like maybe doing something over interview on YouTube. But as far as like personal channeling, it's easier for me to stay more present, and that's why I've trained myself to kind of like.
So you can be present to ask the questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, you don't know what's coming through.
Yeah.
So when you're by yourself, it's more of that. I'm having a conversation with this being.
Yeah.
But in this case, would you just go full trance then, or?
I think full trance would probably maybe even a little bit more toward my personality, but more into trance than a private channeling session.
I see.
Because sometimes the client will stop you and like ask questions, and then you have to come back out of it, and then you have to go back in it. So it's better just to kind of like keep a middle ground.
I see. Interesting. I've noticed one channeling where you were bringing in, I think it was reptilian energy, or no, was it reptilian? One of these ancient bearded guys.
Bearded guy.
Was he and he was one of these bigger tall beings that lived on Earth.
Oh, the red-haired giant.
The red-haired giants. And
Yeah,
you were
that
saying,
was a weird.
Yeah, you were saying like just physically how it felt, and this is just weird. Yeah. So, was it just weird because it wasn't like anything else that you've experienced?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Okay.
It wasn't like anything I had felt. It was like I was talking to somebody that looked like a human, but it felt like an animal.
Oh, okay.
So
right,
it was, yeah.
Animalistic
Yes.
energy.
Yeah.
Energy. Okay. Yeah, and I remember watching that and sort of feeling that as well. Any other strange, weird energies that you want to mention?
I will mention channeling Brigham Young is quite interesting.
And he was the one who found the skeletons? No.
He was the one that took the Mormons
Oh.
from the region in Illinois over to establish like what the church is today.
Okay, so you...
So built up pretty much all of Salt Lake City.
Wow, so you channeled that you channeled him.
He actually came to me,
Oh.
and it was very intense. And it's interesting because Utah is named after a raptor, which is a reptilian, and he's got a lot of like reptilian type energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a lot, I don't know, it was just a very weird energy, I felt like when he came to me.
And that energy, is that on your website?
So that, when I was like, all right, let's make a YouTube of
Yeah.
the channeling, he actually switched and made it a little bit more lighthearted and loving, because I felt like maybe he did that because the collective wasn't ready to hear what he was actually telling me.
Oh, okay.
Because there's a lot of reasons why religion was brought here in the first place, and some of them aren't so good because they can capture our consciousness, and he was part of that. So
He was part of the bringing it here, right?
he was part of making it into what it is today, sort of capturing that consciousness to keep it into a childlike state versus expanding.
Can you go into depth a little bit of that?
So basically what I understand is Joseph Smith was here to bring in information from the past and to help others understand kind of like where we were, then created a religion because of it. Brigham Young actually, after Joseph had passed over, took all of the saints over to this region and established like the church, and I guess used that information against the people.
Okay.
So it was good initially, but it was
Sure.
transformed.
As all religions.
Yeah,
right?
and he really does, Brigham Young really does have a very dark energy. I feel like there was a lot going on at that time that really,
Okay.
yeah.
How long ago was this? When you came through?
I don't know, maybe a year ago?
Okay.
Maybe, yeah.
Because I could see that definitely would be some blowback. You could definitely get a blowback from the community.
They were kind of like, that's not safe for you to do that right now.
Put that out.
But individually, if they come to you and ask questions, like in a private channel, we can do that.
Again, collectively though, it was sort of, we all choose to have this experience. So he's just a facilitator for that collective desire.
Yeah.
To experience this religious constraints or disempowerment or whatever you want to, whatever it is, you know. So again, another perspective, not to look at him as this bad guy. Or,
That's really good. I love that, especially because at the time Joseph channeled a lot of information. It was beneficial. And then people, you know, he built this church and people were coming to him, oh, should I plant this type of seed in my yard? Should I do this? And all of a sudden you're giving your power away to somebody else when you're able to tap into that yourself.
Right.
And obviously, like we said, you can use that for good or evil. And the leadership was taken to use, come to me for all of your problems and, you know, I'll make it right.
Right.
And they allowed it, the people allowed it.
Yeah. So that you get what you asked for. Interesting. Well, cool. Well, I do look forward to seeing what other energies come through later today, and the future of your work. So definitely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.